Hello and welcome to a special bonus episode, a joint operation of What a Hell of a Waste of Well, There's Your Problem.
Die.
Yes.
Die.
Would this, I guess this, Nate, would this be considered a combined operation or a joint operation? I think combined is when it's multiple branches of the same military, and joint if it's cross borders. So technically.
Yeah. So this would technically be a combined joint operation.
And Alice is in like 7 different militaries if you base yourself on her costume.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
But Liam and I are civilians, so I don't know if we're just contractors.
No, we got
or what.
drafted, bud. We're in here now.
Combined joint task force. Well, there's your hell of a way to problem.
That's right. You know who it is.
Yeah.
It's Francis, it's Nate, it's me, Liam, and Justin. And we're here to talk
Hello.
about the M2 Bradley Armored Fighting Vehicle. Seen here, I guess.
This is the underneath. Scandalous.
Is it? I can't tell. I can't see the top of it.
Well, it could be almost anything, but we have to take it on faith.
We flip a lot of tanks over in mud, so
It's funny because having dealt with Bradleys, when I was in Korea, my last unit, it was a combined arms battalion of 2 companies of Bradleys and 2 companies of tanks. And Bradleys are hilarious in the sense that they are heavier than most countries' main battle tanks. And obviously, Abrams tanks are like twice the weight of most countries' main battle tanks. So there's not a bridge or a culvert in Korea that can really handle an Abrams or even a Bradley for that matter. So you just do constant water crossings. Like my memories are wet feet and the smell of exhaust from those fucking things, and they suck. So I'm really excited to talk about it. I've never piloted a Bradley. I didn't have to do Bradley gunnery, but I mean, in the sense of being a gunner or TC or whatever. But I've been in them a bunch. I've worn the old timey headsets and shit, and it smells bad. And I am very much looking forward to watching the Bradley get excoriated. So I'm just going to sit here and rub my hands together in a mischievous, joyful way.
I'm going to end up being the Bradley defender probably. That's fine.
It's fine.
I'm also slightly it's still, don't get me wrong, it's still a huge piece of shit, but their heart was in the right place, I guess.
That's some real military defense there.
Well, I mean, Homer's heart was in the right place when he designed the Homer, but and the Bradley is the
God,
direct
it does
equivalent
kind of
that.
look like the Homer. Okay.
It
does
is
actually look
the
like the Homer,
It-
yeah.
So is the Homer.
Bradley of the ditch, what is your wisdom? So I thought what I'd do is, because I made the slides for this one, because this is technically my rotation of the bonus episode on the Well, There's Your Problem chronology. And so for Well, There's Your Problem listeners who are more civilian oriented, I thought I would go back a bit and explain where the Bradley comes from. So next slide, please.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. We went back too far.
Yes.
I'm going to have to explain the concept of infantry. It's when
This guy right here is having a bad day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The guy next to him
Bloodshot
is
is not
like,
your
"What
friend."
the fuck? You got shot in a war?"
Steve, you okay, bud?
So, like, infantry, oldest combat formation in history. Chow can do it. That's why it's called that. What does it do? It closes with and it destroys the enemy. This is a podcast about the closing with part, which has been kind of fraught historically because walking sucks. You guys know that.
Close with and destroy the enemy by method of fire and maneuver. Yes, that's my former job. And yes, it sucks. I was a light infantryman. I was an airborne infantryman for a while, and then I was a staff weenie in a combined arms battalion. So I have both done the heavy rucking, and I've also done the tank abortion thing that's called the Bradley, and dealt with all of it. And honestly, I would rather have a heavy rucksack than deal with these pieces of shit.
We must reject modernity, embrace tradition, but tradition is carrying a fucking halberd.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, okay, let's be perfectly honest here. The Bradley has an immense amount of firepower, so that if you need that, it is very nice. But as far as training and the normal run of life, it's just a big, heavy, loud, bad-smelling piece of shit. And
Please don't call me that on the podcast.
I mean, sir, the Bradley is literally my middle name, so I should defend this thing. But actually, it sucks. It's named after Omar Bradley. The guy who I believe he was a World War II general, and he wound up like leading the VA in its first incarnation. I believe he was extremely racist and opposed the integration of the army post World War II.
You're telling me a World War II general officer was racist?
My God.
Yeah, hard
wild.
to believe, right? So yeah, it's being an infantryman basically means you are the person who does the shooting and the moving. And this is one of the mechanisms by which you get to do that.
Yeah.
A tank that's not a tank.
We've established, right, a lot of problems with infantry in that it sucks walking, and also like people are shooting at you with stuff. You might get killed before you're supposed to get killed, which is, you know,
Embarrassing,
Yes.
if nothing else.
yeah, exactly.
Imagine getting killed on the walk to the battle.
Yeah, this guy right here wasn't supposed to get killed for another like 50 meters.
isn't that what being a general officer is just being like, no, you're not supposed to get killed yet. You're supposed to get killed up here.
He's the guy that found the gopher hole.
Yeah.
How do you make the close widthier? How do you make it faster? And for a long time,
Hosses.
yeah, horse
Hosses.
soldier.
Mhm.
We got here as dragoons. You don't really get a dragoon anymore, which is a shame.
Dragoon is a very cool class to have in Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah.
But I don't think the actual job was particularly cool.
No,
I
it's
suppose
it's
you
a
had a horse.
cut rate cavalryman, right? Like you ride the horse, and then when you get to the battle, you get off the horse and you fight as infantry. But they still have to train you to ride the horse, so you know it sucks. The only benefit
I
is
kinda
it's cheaper than cavalry, and they can keep up with cavalry.
What does the horse do after you jump off the horse? Does he just
Get
stand there?
killed, probably.
Goes to the oat farm.
You hide behind it and let it like absorb the bullets being shot at you.
That's the users of 17th century something awful. They were called dragoons.
Dragoons and platoons.
Just fucking Big Peeler running around and nailing theses to the wall with a hammer about how much of a badass he is.
What do you mean you have to pay 10 guineas to join the forum?
You posted a fucking, you know, a woodblock print of Goatsy. Now you have to pay 10 more guilders to get into the forum.
What are the odds that George Washington will be killed within the first 2 weeks of engagement? High. Civilian casualties, under a dozen. just Grover going in on fucking Continentals restocking snacky cake machines.
You're waiting.
All this done on vellum.
You got a bunch of libertarians waiting for the revaluation of the Continental. Yeah.
All right, next
man.
slide, please. So horses, they work, and they work good for a long time. And by work good, I mean they get killed. But you know, it's fine. Like this is the Nazis invading the Soviet Union, and they're walking with horse-drawn carts. There's a lot of Soviet Union. Some would say that there was like a large amount of Russia, and
Yes.
so this is sort of a problem. Like, what can we do about this?
I remember reading Alan Clark's book, Barbarossa, and that was something that was interesting to me, was just even in the initial portion of the initial months of the invasion of the Soviet Union, like their supply chains were so spread out because all they had were just like, you know, stolen French trucks from the invasion of France.
Mm.
And it's just like hundreds and hundreds of miles of road between each city that was just bog. So yeah, it kind of makes sense why they would go with horse, because shitty, you know, 1940s, 1930s vintage trucks on the famously good road network of the Soviet Union, leading, you know, into the border with Poland. I can only imagine that they were not leaning on that mechanical stuff for too long before it all broke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think about how shitty like our mechanical stuff is now. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that shitty. It's just like, you know, it's got more points to break down, but also like, you know, yeah, you could probably take a tracked Bradley or Abrams tank through a bog now, but man, that shit back in the 40s, things just stopped working just because fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if nothing else, like horses are somewhat better at keeping themselves alive than like you'd expect. So they can kind of get through the Rasputitsa, but like people get very tired of horses, right? We got to do something better than the horses. And so the next few slides we're going to have alternatives. Next slide, please.
The wheeled horse.
Yes.
Ding ding, bitch.
This is me on my way to a Trash Future live show, carrying all my shit on my bike.
Yeah, that's right. You can put infantry on bicycles. You can do that. I don't know why you do that though. It's stupid as hell.
The Viet
It's
Cong did it.
eco-conscious.
Yeah,
you can go very fast on a bicycle.
I would love to watch Roz with like a mounted machine gun on his bike, just taking on the people who cut him off on Spruce Street. You've done this for the last time.
Problem is though, right? Like to do the infantry thing, you got to carry a lot of shit, and those guys have like a bolt action rifle, a canteen, and a mat, and that's it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
light. That's fine.
You need a cargo bike with a machine gun and a guy and a gunner driving around.
Smart.
Well, now we're a technical.
Yeah.
And that's different.
Well, I was thinking about this. The Viet Cong used bicycle, but not like bicycle infantry to move. It was more bicycle resupply. So they had built bikes that were able to handle dirt roads and in a tropical climate. If I remember correctly, they may have, I don't know if they were wood wheels or if they actually had metal wheels, but these things were super rugged. Like they had, front and rear fenders, they had saddlebags, they had all this stuff. And similarly, they also used bicycles. And I'm not joking, like, whereas the Wall Street Journal or whomever designed that crazy infographic of bin Laden's secret lair that was like, the most advanced bunker in history, the Viet Cong actually, and the North Vietnamese army used basically stationary bikes to generate power inside their underground bunkers. Like someone was just like, all right, your shift, ride for 30 minutes to generate the light bulb power.
I love how that's not even close to the worst job you could have had in that war. Was like, I'm a generator. I will say one thing in defense of bicycle infantry, which is that the Japanese army did take Singapore with them, but that was largely due to the expedient of British people being very stupid.
I would just say too that if you look at something like Nijmegen, where to get to in the Battle of the Bulge, you had paratroopers having to walk 25 miles a day with their gear and packs and weapons and stuff. 4 days straight to get I can't remember if it was to get to Nijmegen or get out of Nijmegen. I just know that it's commemorated, with like a ceremonial 100-mile march now. And clearing 25 miles if it's just an approach march with bikes is so much fucking easier than walking, for sure. But there's just like the big logistical complaint here is what do you do? How do you get the bikes? How do you get rid of the bikes? Can you carry all your shit on your bikes? I wouldn't want to be carrying, a medium machine gun and all the ammo and spare barrels trying to balance on a bike. And I feel like the bike wouldn't like it either and would probably break. But as far as like doing approach marches go, like, if the terrain supports it, it's incredible. I mean, it would be awesome because it sure beats just hamburgering the fuck out of your feet walking that far. Even if you've trained for it, like it still sucks.
Critical support for bicycle infantry.
Yes.
They really should have just, and I'm with you, Nate, because now I'm looking at like, how do we make this work? And it's like, you can make like a tuk-tuk or you can make like a rickshaw. And then you've got a place to put all of your shit. And if you need expedience, you can just like unhook your bike. Like if you put like a baby carrier full of guns behind this bike, the bicycling baby carriers, like I've seen people in my neighborhood use those for like taking their groceries around or like scrap metal and shit like that. If you just put a bunch of guns back there and then just like, shit, the cops are on me. Oh, dump the guns, get out of here.
That's the
We'll
real,
never figure it out.
like the real pandemic planning, the real shit hits
Just
the fan
leading
stuff
a trail of Car 98s behind you. Never mind those.
Hey, if you need to arm a militia for under $1,000, man, Mosin Nagants and
bicycles.
And bicycles, yeah.
But now we've got to go to the other end of this, which is Nate has slightly anticipated on the next slide.
I don't know. Bicycles get pretty expensive pretty quick.
Aha, yes.
That's a title drop.
A very extremely useful and contemporary method of deploying troops into combat. Now, let me throw one thing in here because feel free to rip on the airborne, but I will say this much: airborne makes sense if you're dropping a division's worth of people into one place at one time. Other than that, helicopters make way more sense. And the reason why they don't get used is because we haven't done. I mean, aside from like literally so that they said they could say that they did dropping the 173rd Airborne Brigade into Iraq during the invasion. This isn't really used that often because of the fact that it makes zero sense for this kind of a troop deployment unless you need 4 brigades worth of dudes on the ground.
Yeah, and even then,
at a pinch.
Like, when have you needed that since Market Garden, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think my favorite part of paratrooping, of airborne deployment, and the whole lore behind it is that the Germans took Crete with the Fallschirmjägers, the German paratroopers, and they said, man, fuck that shit. Never again. This is so stupid. We lost so many people. And the Americans saw it, and they're like, Jesus, what a great idea. Fucking throw guys out of
throw them in there, boys.
And they lost them to like Bernard Freiberg, one of the lesser generals on the Allied side of the war, too. It's really like, ugh.
But as we've said before, and I hope we're not repeating a joke from our previous episode, I have such a dad memory, I can't remember. The German paratrooper doctrine involved people would fall with maybe sidearms or knives attached to them, but they would have containers, like they drop parachute containers with submachine guns or carbines. So basically, they did Fortnite in real life.
Vor droppen boys. I guess the other problem with the sort of with parachute infantry is that you have to have enough people with normal enough brains to do it. Like,
and normal enough knees and backs and shoulder blades, depending on how you hit. Like, I was offered airborne. They're like, hey, I mean, you're a reservist, but we could get you airborne. We could do that. And then I watched like airborne drops, and it's not like, when you watch like, oh, here comes, the guy at the football game and he's going to parachute in and land so lightly and then wave at the crowd. No, you fucking hit like a ton of bricks and you're carrying so you're already your own body, and then how much shit do you have on you, Nate? Like your body armor, your helmet, and then
I've never jumped with body armor because hilariously I didn't jump in combat, and the fact is your ceramic plates are more valuable than your body to the army, so they're not going to make us drop our body armor but what you would probably do in real life, my best guess is you wouldn't jump wearing your body armor, you would jump with it in your pack. But you jump, what you do is the parachute has, it's like a big backpack, kind of like a pack frame with a cloth pack where the parachute is bundled up in the back. Then you strap on a reserve parachute across your abdomen, and that the harness has 2 hooks on it, which you then connect to your rucksack, which is basically suspended upside down. It hangs from the front of you, and you have a release on your rucksack to basically, when you get close to maybe I think it's 100, 200 feet up from landing, you drop it. And so you jettison your ruck, it's connected to you, but basically it lands first, because if you land with your ruck, it's going to hurt like shit. And typically, if you're jumping into an actual exercise where, you would probably expect to not be resupplied for at least 2 or 3 days at most, and probably longer than that. So, let me just put it this way. You're going to have all your food, all your water, all your ammo, all your specialty equipment, communications equipment, any kind of stuff you need, uniforms, boots, etc., stuff you need to survive with. If you are typically light infantry, you're going to have mortars too. So mortarmen are going to jump the base plates. They're going to jump the tubes. They're going to jump all of their measuring equipment that they need. The radio guys are jumping their fucking radios. It's the one time that I did a full combat load for a training exercise, because when I was a platoon leader in an airborne unit, typically the platoon leader jumps his radio man's ruck, and the radio man carries the platoon leader's ruck, because if you get separated, the platoon leader needs to be able to talk. So you want to have him have the radio first. And that shit was probably 90 pounds. So 90 pounds on top of hanging off the front of you, on top of your parachute, on top of all your gear and your helmet and all that stuff. And when you land, you basically, that you get brought down fast enough to not die or seriously break your ass if you do it correctly, but you're not brought down like gingerly, because the idea is you're supposed to come down so fast it's hard for people to fucking shoot you. So when you land, you no matter how good your technique, unless you're really, really shit hot on it and you have a lot of experience, which I jumped, I think 14, 15 times in my career. You don't have that much experience until you get, so like younger soldiers, privates, etc. You don't have that much experience, and you just fucking break your ass. You just roll ass over head, no matter how good your technique, it always happens. And so it just sucks. Every time I ever ran drop zone safety as an officer, it was easy every single time. 3-4 people had to be taken out in an ambulance. It's just not for serious shit, but just for concussions and stuff.
It's not a great rate.
These were jumps with 300, 400 people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just say the reason why this isn't done very often anymore is because unless you need to put 10,000 people in the same space really quickly, it's just stupid dangerous.
However, I do want to say that if you really want to watch some great airborne drops, look up Humvee airborne drop.
Oh yeah.
Watch the one where somebody cut the straps, and so two or three Humvees are just hucked out of the back of a C-17 and just smash into the ground.
Didn't the guy who filmed that get demoted or something?
Yes. He got UCMJ for basically making the army for laughing and making the army look bad. Yeah.
All right.
Don't put 3 Humvees face in the sand then.
Yeah. Can I get the next slide, please? We had another option, which is wet troops. Mm-hmm. You can just jump out the front of a boat, which is very nice if your enemy has a coastline. And if they don't have that, then you just have a whole arm of service that exists to duplicate existing doctrine, but louder and dumber.
Hoorah. I see the joke right here.
The Marine Corps has been actually funding a ton of money into intelligence agencies to stop Bhutan from getting the bomb because they cannot be shamed out of having a fucking amphibious landing, you know.
Well, the good news is, like, this is a growth industry because coastlines, there's only going to be more of them.
Yeah, we can't do a landing craft there yet, but give us about 20 years.
The Marines should start focusing resources into being able to quickly build canals to access landlocked areas.
We have combat engineer. I love the idea of you like riding up to some landlocked country and being paradropped in, and then you have to like dig a canal. And then the Marines come in like 3 weeks later, and they're just like, amphibious landing.
The Dutch Marines are like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is normal.
All right, so we can rule this one out. Next slide,
Inland
please.
Navy.
It does look the coolest, I will say.
I mean, this picture looks really cool, but you can also Google some really fucking embarrassing amphibious
I'm sure.
landings with the Marines,
immediately
where
eating
everybody
shit.
just everybody just eating
Vomiting
shit because
constantly.
yeah, I mean it's the ocean. It fucking you're depending on when you're getting dumped out of it, you could suddenly get hit by a wave, and a wave only needs to be waist high to knock you on your ass, especially when you're top heavy with a bunch of shit. I really wonder, like, if you go back to that the Marine there, I really wonder like how much shit is being used to strap that rifle directly to his chest. Because Lance Corporal here, if he drops this in the ocean, it's never coming back, and nor will his career. So I also think about, like, when I look at training stuff, because I know this is training, because if you look at the front, there's a blank firing
You see that
adapter
red thing on the tip of the rifle. That is the blank firing adapter. But he's carrying if you look at where his hand, you see he's on his left hand, he's got his wedding ring, and then go to your right, his left of that hand, you see that kind of tan looking thing on the rifle. That is a more advanced, no, not to our right, to his left.
Wow.
Or down. That thing, yeah, that is a PEC 15 laser. So Lance Corporal is definitely an infantryman, but that's also probably, in the eyes of the Marine Corps, worth more than his life. So I understand that they would probably only have this shit if either they really needed it to use it, which, quite frankly, it's a training operation.
I'll tell you why this is happening, because they wanted to get some cool URA photos.
100%,
but unfortunately, a blank firing adapter makes them all look shitty, because it's
That
like,
worked
yeah,
on
look
me.
at you.
It worked on me, Francis. I'm ready.
I'm here to dispel the magic. This is all done for PR shit.
I'm also wondering, I've never seen, because obviously I was never a Marine, I never did amphibious stuff, but the stuff that he's got on his shoulders, if that's kind of like a life preserver kind of thing, because it looks like he's wearing like a sweet bitchin' tactical scarf, but it's actually, I'm seeing that the guy behind him has one too. I'm thinking that's like a life preserver.
It's the thing you soak in some water and you put it on your neck to keep you cool in the
Yeah, it's
summer.
little marine travel pillows.
It's a long boat ride. You take a little nap. Oh shit, I didn't take it off. Sorry, Sergeant.
And if you throw up, it can absorb the vomit.
Yeah.
There's that scene from Saving Private Ryan where they're about to land in Omaha, and the one guy's throwing up, and the other guy is steadfastly packing a lip. And I always love that scene, because like as a guy who used to I can't imagine like about to walking into like pillboxes and whatever, check hedgehogs and shit, just being like, the whole beach is my spitter.
I mean, I'd probably take a dip from him too, because I'm about to die. What difference does this make? And then I'd be the one, like, I'd hit the beach and start running. A wave would hit me. I'd swallow the plug and then just be the guy throwing up next to the other guy, and then get immediately mowed down by.
Just trying to signal the pillboxes to shoot you, to put you out of your misery.
Listen, if you ain't gutting, you ain't trying.
All right, so better option than boats. Next slide. Trucks. What if we put the infantry in trucks and they ride in the trucks?
Those are technicals, Alice.
No, because they don't shoot out of the trucks.
They're
They just
not
sit in the
shooting.
back
Go
on
ahead.
like wooden slat benches, and then the truck gets close enough, they jump out, and then they go do war stuff.
I will say that I was driving to York the other day. My mom had a health scare, and we passed. There's a massive FEMA vaccination clinic in Philly. that's doing 6,000
Man,
shots a
fucking
day.
imagine that sentence a couple of years ago. We just drove past a
Yeah.
massive FEMA vaccination clinic.
There was a bunch of PA National Guard guys in the Humvees at 70, and I'm just like, I can't even imagine how that must feel. Like, these are good roads, just like my ass is shaking apart. The one guy was driving with earbuds in, and I was like, ah, yes, Pennsylvania's finest. Like,
Yeah, man. Yeah, I can only. I'm glad those days are gone. Actually, yeah, because I remember being in convoys in Korea, and it's just so fucking cold. Like those things, like they have heaters, but they just don't really get that warm. Like I'm lazy and old now.
Hey, but on the plus side, now that you have this motorized infantry, you know, you can just drive wherever. You can kind of keep up with tanks, maybe. Also, people don't get blisters on their blisters walking to the thing. Problems. It's made of canvas, right? It's made of canvas and sheet metal. If anybody shoots at a truck, the truck's dead. So is everyone in the truck. So what's more survivable than a truck is a tank. What if we made trucks more like tanks? Next slide, please. Mechanized infantry.
Ooh, half tracks.
Half tracks.
Oh, the half track.
Half tracks.
Yeah, half tracks. Even just a fully tracked vehicle like the Universal Carrier on the top right.
I remember these. Battlefield 1942.
Oh, who could forget? I love that, like, all of these were invented independently, right? Like, the Americans invent a half-track, the Germans invent a half-track, the British invent this universal carrier thing. None of them invent a roof.
Right.
Yeah, it's to get the wind going through your hair. It's a nice summer's day. You're about to lose 50,000 dudes taking half a kilometer of some shitty forest you've never heard of.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, well, I mean, the
I like-
Germans.
I like-
off to your dick in mud in the Ardennes.
I really I love half things like this because it really shows like we don't really want to commit to one or the other. So let's put wheels in front of a tank and see what happens. And just that everybody tried that was like, yeah, that makes sense.
I
We're
feel
gonna
like
keep
doesn't. I would
trying to
never-
make this a thing. The whole
I-
war.
it's like I don't think it would steer that well. I feel like you would turn the front wheels and it would just keep going straight.
They're apparently not bad. They weren't bad at going over like rough terrain, but they were useless on roads just because they couldn't steer.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but tanks can do weird turns by doing
Yeah, they can
one
turn
tread
in
going
place.
forward
Yeah.
and one tread backward. Yeah, so I was just wondering like what that would be like when you also have the front of the bus has wheels on it. You know what I mean?
You just scrape those tires down horizontally.
You know, I am interested to see kind of how the gearbox for this works because you have to have two different drivetrains. You have to have something, you know, running the treads in the back, which, you know, like Nate said, should move interdependently. And then you've got this, you know, this differential up front that has to move independently. Like, do they only go forward and then the steering is in the front? Or can, when you turn the wheel, does like it also make one of the tracks? Should you have pedals? Like,
Is it
now I
like
want to get
the-
inside one of these and see how they figured it out.
Is it like the British three-wheeled car, the Robin Reliant, that it can't go backwards?
I think, as far as I know, like the wheels drive, like the wheels steer rather, but the tracks drive. So you can just like push forward and like the fucking Sonderkraft Fahrzeug 251 on the bottom here. Like if you look at that long hood, like 2/3 of that is gearbox. So
Oh wow!
Wow.
I mean, that one is the most badass looking of all of them. Let's be perfectly honest. That absolutely looks like a Batman villain's
Oh, yeah.
personal sex mobile. Like
it looks like the
genuinely-
40s Batmobile. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And like with no roof, like it on the plus side, you can just jump out and jump over the side, or you can like shoot from the inside out. But like if somebody gets a grenade in there, then everybody's dead, right? So
They're Batsenwagen.
None of these have weapons on them, so you need it open so that your guys can get up and chuck their own, you know, grenades and shoot their own guns because they have no.
yeah.
Real
The
defense.
bottom one, look at the guy with the helmet who's in the very front. Like that looks like a pintle mount in front of
Yeah,
him.
you might have like a light machine gun on one of these. Yeah.
Well, that could be a pintle mount, but also when I looked at it, it looked like a signpost that might be behind them.
yeah,
Like,
that's
just
true
kind of
too.
So, but I mean, even that though, like if you put like one machine gun up there, you're still going to want everybody else to hop out and start shooting because this thing is not that armored. Like, maybe it can deal with some small arms fire, but if somebody gets like a recoilless rocket out, you're kind of fucked in this.
And like it's very vulnerable to any kind of indirect fire of anything.
And air power too. I mean,
The good news is the Soviets didn't have any of that. They definitely did not have artillery or aircraft. So smooth sailing.
Luckily, it only takes, skip to the next slide, please, until the 1950s for someone to invent the roof.
God,
That is
this
a
thing is so
beautiful
fucking sad looking.
Driving around and
It's a 113, isn't it?
yeah.
This
The
is-
113, which we're going to talk about a lot, that is still used today. We still use this.
I have been in one of those before. That is typically they're typically used as medic vehicles in mechanized or heavy units. It's also the first sergeant has a 113 that he drives, where the commander has a Bradley and stuff like that. So you make the first sergeant drive the old timey car, while the commander gets the new timey car. But yeah, that thing was like a mainstay of the U.S. in Vietnam, and we still use them today.
I like how it's just
Not
a
very
cube
well armored.
with tracks.
Oh yeah, it's a big shoebox, right? And like, you can put a machine gun on the top, like out of the hatch in the top, but like typically not an enclosed turret until like, I don't know, the last years of the War on Terror, when they started putting the like fucking like perspex.
The same, more or less, a variant of the turret that got put on Humvees, where you started out with nothing, and then you started out with like a sheet metal slat, and then you got a sheet metal slat with like a HESCO basket on top to give you some shade and some cover or concealment, and then eventually you're like, okay, let's make it out of the same ballistic material with some ballistic glass, and then finally I think they did get like enclosed ones, but it took a minute. I remember when I was in Afghanistan, even new ASVs and MRAPs had the open top ballistic turrets. So we have saving the guy who's on top of the big clown car has not been a priority of our defense industry for a really long time.
Wait, Nate, those turrets are enclosed now?
Not enclosed. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure that, at the end of it, I saw if the turrets didn't come enclosed, then people were making HESCO basket roofs for them. But
back in my day, you got shot or thrown clear of the vehicle and you liked it.
yeah, I mean, they did eventually come up with automated turrets, like ones that were controlled with a joystick. That was something they were starting to put in. Yeah, like remote controlled ones to stop people from having to even be the upgunner. Which
I saw that being like, they didn't have a whole bunch of them, so they would make the front vehicle, because if an IED went off, it would usually hit the front vehicle. So they would make that the one that didn't have a guy up there. We also had to like hook the turret gunner into the inside of the thing,
you had
because
a
otherwise
big strap that was
When you say
connecting,
hook, you literally, I assume, mean strap the guy to the
he
vehicle.
wears an additional harness on top of his shit, and he gets connected to basically the floor plate of the vehicle.
Yeah. So that if there's an accident or if there's a rollover, he doesn't fly out and get crushed or something. He can drop down.
It's like how cars have bodywork as part of the chassis. This guy is just a stability bar.
Yeah, well, he gets pulled. The whole thing of the training is you pull him in if you feel like you're rolling over. But I actually, hilariously, even though I was an officer, I actually was the upgunner once, because I was in a Humvee full of more senior officers. So I was the junior ranking guy. So I just got up in the fucking open air turret with a M240 Bravo and my M4 and just traipsing around some fucking roads. Yeah, it was an experience, but I'm not going to pretend I did it on a regular basis.
I also want to point out the other thing that I love about the M113 is, if you remember back in 2018 when a lieutenant company commander stole a quote tank, it was an M113 that he stole, a very nice looking one. There, it's the one. If you look up Lieutenant Yabit, you'll see pictures of like what 113s look like now. They look a little bit nicer than this. We still do build them, and they are very kind of, they upgrade it. They make them for different things. We don't use this old Vietnam shit anymore. But
yeah, he was on a quest to go get an anime wife, and he just tore ass around in a fucking. You guys, are you familiar with that story, right? Joshua Yabbitt, the first lieutenant who stole a 113 from his guard or reserve unit and was just tearing ass around. What state was it, French? Was it Virginia?
It was Virginia.
He was Virginia.
I
Yeah,
think
he
it
was going.
Virginia, yeah.
Yeah, I think he was going to. Where was he
He
going?
was like right
I
outside.
can't remember, but I really
Petersburg.
love that he was live streaming from the inside.
He no shit DM'd us like a couple of weeks
Dudes
before. I was like, hey, I love
rock.
your show, guys. But
Fort Pickett to downtown Richmond.
Hey, some of you guys are all right. Don't come to the guard armory tomorrow.
That's like 40 miles too, man. He took that shit on the highway and was just like, all right, let's go. And nobody wanted to get in front of it because it's like, it's a fucking tank. It's not a real tank, but it's going to make
Your
pretty
Miata's
short
gonna
work.
have a bad day.
Yeah, you can't really pit maneuver it. Yeah.
I do kind of like the idea of just taking this to go to the bar in Richmond and parking it outside one of the hype beast breweries, and then just like running it into their storefront over and over. Be like, I heard you have IPAs.
Well, a bunch of
Popping out
cops,
of the
a bunch
turret.
of police departments have these as like DoD hand-me-downs. They have it
Yes.
113s. Like this is even before they started getting like MRAPs. They had these, and they just used them as like SWAT vehicles, which is
yeah,
wild
the LA
to me.
SWAT. I
We
remember
have
like a long time
these.
ago
We
had
have
those. Yeah.
Bearcats and all that
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Philly PD loves their fucking Bearcats.
Good to talk
Oh,
about.
hey, he was found not guilty by reason of insanity.
Oh, hell
Taking
yeah.
the armored vehicle.
Awesome.
nice.
Good for you, buddy. I think he was also arrested for trying to go to Iraq illegally too.
Yeah.
Dude,
At the
dude
same
needs a little help.
time, or like he was gonna.
No, after.
Ah.
Like he stole
Oh,
he stole
yeah.
the 113, and then he DM'd me afterwards, like after he was kind of let out, because he was just like, "Hey, do you want an interview?" And I was like, I don't think that would be a good idea to do any of that. And then later I learned that he tried to like just
flew
take
space
civilian
available.
flights
I think to get to like Turkey or something. And was trying to go to Iraq.
so
Yeah,
he could
was-
smuggle himself into Iraq
do
to go
what?
fight the war. Like, dude, you're in the army. You were already like
You could
in
just
the
go.
thing that does that.
Yes.
Quit acting weird. You'll show up there eventually. I'm
So
sure.
I was going to throw something in about helicopters just because
Oh, please,
I
yeah.
was a helicopters guy. I had to do the training stuff for Pathfinder school and all that shit. So some of the earlier helicopters were in the Korean War. There was I can't remember the model numbers, but they were very, very elementary looking things. I mean,
That
they
sad
genuinely-
looking bell one that I'm
Oh,
thinking
the
of.
fucking yeah.
the one that was literally like it looked like an erector set with a glass
Yes.
dome on the front, and they
Oh,
use it for
the MASH helicopters.
Yeah, and
it's
they
an
use it for
Alouette
Kazovac.
to me, or like a Gazelle, but like I don't know what it is to you guys.
Hilariously, they used these for Kazovac in the Korean War, but what that entailed was you had to put and I am not joking, there were like straps and like loops for carabiners for you to strap the fucking stretcher to the skids of the helicopter. So if you got Kazovac in the Korean War, you were just balls in the open air flying on the underside of a helicopter.
Making getting shot the second worst thing to happen to you that day.
They eventually were like, maybe we should have a cover so that we don't kill these dudes who are in shock by giving them hypothermia. But in the initial incarnation of it was open air. You got strapped to the outside of the helicopter. You were full on like Stallone movie hanging out of a helicopter kind of shit to get taken to the hospital.
Oh, you can still do that when you're like upright with the like is it an MH6? The ones with the like the benches on the side, yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. AH6, MH6. Yeah. I think those are called little birds. I can't remember what are they called. Francis, do you remember?
I've always known them as little birds. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are like full on specialty, like cool guy helicopters. Like you don't really typically see those very much.
That's how you like back in the day. You got special forces, and now everybody just gets a Black Hawk.
Yeah. They have because they have specialty Blackhawks and specialty Chinooks and stuff that they use for those guys.
And that they crash into into places in Abbottabad while they're trying to.
Yeah.
So this is just my slide to introduce the concept of nobody can agree what to call this. Like it's depending on who you ask, it's air cavalry or like heli mobile or air assault or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is air assault would specifically be like you're doing a ground light infantry mission, but you're just getting there via helicopter. But like the helicopters aren't like engaging. You know what I mean? Like it's just a mobility sort of thing. And air cav, as I understand it, was 100% the same thing, but they were so into the fact that they were the first armored division or whatever the fuck it was.
So the senior NCO gets to wear the cool hat like in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, exactly. Like they because they were a cav unit, they decided to call themselves Air Cav, just as the 101st Airborne is actually an air assault unit now and doesn't do airborne ops at all. Like aside from their Pathfinder companies, like there's very few people who are like have jobs in the 101st that require them to be airborne qualified because they do helicopter stuff. And whereas the 82nd Airborne actually does parachute stuff, and that's why they break so many people and get them on VA disability, which is universal basic income for warriors.
So I've tentatively put down here that this works quite well.
Yeah. I mean, if you need to get it in a place, like the great thing is now is that the Blackhawk or the Chinook that you're going in always has door gunners, usually one on each side if you're lucky. So even if it's not
escort as well. You typically have escort from AH-64s or maybe little birds and that kind of thing. But like you might also have Kiowas.
Cobras, Kiowas, stuff like that.
Yeah. So I mean, I've done a ton of air assaults. Like that's what we did mostly in Afghanistan. If we weren't driving someplace, we were doing a ground pounder mission. We were getting there in Chinooks, and Chinooks aren't actually designed to be air assault vehicles like that, but they're the only helicopters that can handle high elevation and high temperatures the way that, because like it would be very challenging to fly people in and around some of those passes in Blackhawks, and also Blackhawks don't fit that many people. So like, why would you want, I mean, doctrinally speaking, you're supposed to fly literally like a whole battalion in with Blackhawks and just do like, 8 lifts of 12 aircraft just over and over and over again. And someone at some point was like, maybe we can literally throw like 50 dudes in a Chinook. Let's just do it that way instead.
Bus. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they say, hey, we've got a school bus that has helicopter blades and jet engines on it. What if we just use that? And we've been using the Chinook for 50 years now because it's great.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, my experience was that I would much rather get to where I'm going in a Chinook than drive there in an MRAP. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Have you considered that that's expensive and the Army doesn't like spending money?
Oh, the Army loves spending money. Just not on shit that actually works.
Fine. The Army doesn't like spending money on you.
One of my former soldiers got in trouble because they had to do they were forced to do like a survey on the way out of Afghanistan where they were like,
fast, neat, average, friendly, good.
They were collecting information for the people who make MRAPs, and they were like, we want your survey results because you guys were driving around the Max Pros, which were like a model of MRAP that was made by Oshkosh. And one of my soldiers, for his comments on how can you improve this vehicle, was collect them up, melt them down, and make more Chinooks. And civilian contractors making 10 times what that poor soldier made. We're not happy with that.
Yeah, there's never enough helicopters. And also helicopters love to break down. So
they do.
Yes,
they can't fly if it's too blowy or.
So we got to talk about the Chad to the M113's Virgin. Next slide, please. It's a BMP.
Yes.
There we are. What the Bradley should have been.
Yeah. And what the Bradley was intended to be is we move away from the armored personnel carrier type of thing where it's like it's a taxi, right? It's an Uber to the battlefield, to it's an infantry fighting vehicle. It fights on its own. It fits an infantry squad in the back, and then it's got a turret, it's got a big gun, it's got a fucking missile launcher.
Poking out the front.
Oh yeah, they're just chilling, just hanging out.
Hey guys,
that's I believe that's probably the driver, because with these vehicles, invariably the driver is in like massage bed seat, lying down, having to fucking pull levers left and right. It's the weirdest configuration. Friend of the shows, plural shows, Joe Kasabian, host of Lions Led by Donkeys, was a tanker, and I believe he was a driver at one point. And Joe is like 6'3", and it's just like, imagine this disgusting, huge Armenian inside trying to pilot this tank in this little fucking clown seat in the car. And also, like, it's incredibly hot in those things. Yeah. And he was tearing a tank around fucking Fort Hood, Texas, and then Afghanistan.
There's a huge problem with the BMP, though, which is that it's very, very good, and it's also Russian. And, like...
we're supposed to be... we're the ones fighting this very good thing.
Yeah.
So anytime something good is on it, it's bad.
That's right. We got to have one of those for like the forces of democracy. Next slide, please.
Yes.
It's Omar Bradley, famously racist. Man.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did just read an anecdote about him, which was that he was coming back to the lines from somewhere and was detained as a possible spy because a person I guess the guard asked him, what's the capital of Illinois? And he correctly said Springfield. And the guard thought it was Chicago. So Omar Bradley was detained during World War II by his own army.
Discrimination against nerds. So
'Cause he was from like Nebraska or something. He was like full on Great Plains guy. But yeah, he they named the ugly tank after him.
This is why I've always told my wife and my friends and everything, like when I went to Iraq, I said, I don't care if I die, I don't care if it's all heroic and shit. Do not let the army name a goddamn thing after me. Do not let them put, because there's a huge chance it's going to be a gigantic piece of shit that soldiers are going to hate. Like if you go to any military base and you go to shooting ranges, the shooting ranges are all like named after generals or soldiers or like people who have died. They're just like, I don't know who died, who's got a fucking Bronze Star with Valor. Throw his name on, shooting, the lane number 9 or something. And so invariably, you just have people who are just like, oh, I got to go to the fucking Francis shooting range again.
the Francis Horton dining facility.
The Francis Horton masturbatorium.
Here's the thing.
The lower your rank, the less important the range is. So like for some reason they decided that one of the warrior tasks and drills is setting up a claymore completely naked, and they called that Horton range. So it's like, fuck. Shit, I don't want to go to Horton Range. Fuck.
Well, also when I was, and the time that I like really that struck this home, and like I need to tell people this so that it never happens, is I was in Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, going through a side gate, and it was a side entry control point for like for the tactical vehicles, our Humvees and shit, and deliveries, and it was named after a PFC who died in Iraq in 2006. It's like, I never want to be memorialized this way. I never want to be like, yeah, go through the Horton Gate, it's over there. You got to follow the cow truck over through Horton Gate.
The main drag of Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan is named after a specialist named Jason Disney, who died getting crushed by a piece of equipment. And it's like, it's just, so it's Disney Drive, and everyone assumes it's for Disney movies for some reason, or that like it's a big clown show of, fucking dancing hippos from Disney's Fantasia.
You got crushed by a shipping container, right?
And it's just, yeah, something like that. And it just gets me because I always think like,
just checking Twitter.
Literally, it's one step removed from like in that ad of the classified obituary, like in loving memory of Steve Mike Detmer killed by a bowling ball on January 1st, 1985. Like it's basically that, but more solemn and military.
So we got a capitalist BMP here on the right, pointing at Omar. It's an XM723, and it looks kind of nice. I think it looks.
Yeah, it looks
It looks
like BMP.
BMP-ish.
Yeah, kind of low to the ground, agile.
It looks like an armored Lamborghini Countach, which I really like.
Yeah. And it's sort of, it looks fast and looks subtle, and somebody thinks, hey, maybe we can use this for reconnaissance as well as troop carrying, because you use BMPs for that. It's probably fine. Next slide, please. I love the chart that I put on this one.
Jesus Christ, Alice.
It's the Defense Acquisition Management Framework. What's confusing about the Defense Acquisition Management Framework?
I'm literally first live show in Scotland is actually just going to be me fighting you.
It's really funny, those firing ports, those weapons, the port firing weapon. I had forgotten all about those. But yeah, you see those on the right, that looks like an M16 A2 or an A1 with a I can't see exactly, but it doesn't have a stock because it's a port firing weapon. It's meant to be jammed out the port of a Bradley and fired.
Yep.
I like how the plug is hanging there too. It's like you got to unplug the port and jam the specific M16 out the window. Can you even aim, or are you just firing blindly?
It's the port firing weapon, right? I have a whole thing about this because it amuses me so much. Not only does it not have a stock, it doesn't have sights. It's open bolt. It's fully automatic only. In the manual that comes with the Bradley, it says, do not use the port firing weapon detached from the parent vehicle unless it's an emergency. And if it is an emergency, it gives you 4 warnings. It gives you a warning that the muzzle rise will be uncontrollable. It gives you a warning that the barrel collar will become hot to the touch. And it gives you a warning that you have to wear hearing protection and have something to catch the brass in. So this is like that's my synecdoche for the Bradley, right? Is that like it's originally designed to work like a BMP. You fit an infantry squad in the back, and they can have like firing ports. They can shoot out with a rifle, and it gets simultaneously as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The crew compartment gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you can't fire a rifle out of it, and you have
I got
to have
throw
this
something
thing.
else in as well, and that is that please bear in mind, the Bradley was designed before the advent of the kind of body armor that we wear now. It was designed in the era when some people would wear flak jackets, whereas what we wear now is basically an improved flak jacket with ceramic plates in the front, back, and sides. So I'm telling you, you'll wear your equipment vest on top of your body armor. When you have 6 dudes in the back of a Bradley with their full kit to include helmets and body armor and equipment vests, they basically cannot scratch their own nuts. They are so packed in tight. Like you cannot. I mean, you can barely fit a squad in these fucking. Like,
You want to know how many
basically-
people were supposed to get carried as passengers in the XM 723?
Oh god, please tell me
It's
it was
like
like
11?
12 in the
It
squad.
was 11 people.
Shit, fuck. You can
And
barely
put
get a
them
firing
where
team. You
exactly?
can barely get a fucking firing team inside a Bradley. Like it is so. Oh my god, it's so small. Yeah.
I've been crammed into the back of a lot of MRAPs, but I think the worst was anytime I tried to use a porta potty in my full kit, because like they're not that big to begin with, but then you've got all this body armor and everything, and really it's like you wonder why they're so gross inside is because you really can't tell where you're pissing. You just have to like
Well, yeah,
pull your
especially if you
dick
have
out
the
and hope for your
Kevlar. If
best.
you have the Kevlar dick flap, I can only
you
imagine
gotta
how
lift
many
the
people
dick flap.
accidentally pissed on their dick flap. This is actually this is
Oh, I know.
this is a common thing for toilet training in Europe, but in America we don't have a normal dick flap. So for us, the the enormous Kevlar triangle hanging down to cover your dick is funny.
Yeah, you have to figure out a place to put the M16 so it doesn't go down into the shitter. You've got to figure out a way to undo your pants, your button fly as well. Find your dick because there's just so much going on down there as is. After you lift up so you got to have one hand holding up the dick flap, one hand holding yourself. You can't see anything because he's been crushed down there, man. He's not coming out for anything. So you're just hoping and praying. And it's like maybe you'll piss on the wall, maybe you'll get it into the hole. Once you start pissing, then you can aim. It's like a tracer round, right? You got to get the first little bit out so you can figure out where you're pointing, and then you adjust fire.
Speaking of, I want to highlight the fucking TOW missile launcher that this thing has, because somebody thought, hey, the BMP can kill tanks if it's been a good boy. Why can't we kill tanks with the Bradley? Well, okay, we put a missile launcher on it. Where do we put the missile launcher? There's no room in the turret. There's no room in the crew compartment. Where do we put this thing? And the answer is you bolt it off of one side.
Right.
Well, this is, and I know we're going to bust on the Bradley a lot, but like there are so many different variations and iterations where they're just like, we can take this chassis and we can take this idea and just put different things
It's
onto
modular.
it. So
We can have all
Yeah,
kinds
so-
of terrible ideas on here.
There was a Bradley, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember the nomenclature, because I remember just randomly having it assigned in one of like the paper exercises we did in one of our courses. That's a Bradley that's got like big stacks of Stinger missiles in it. And it's just like, it doesn't really do. It's like, yeah, you got a Bradley, but you basically can only shoot down Soviet helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft. You can't really use it for anything else.
That's kind of that leads me so neatly into my next slide, which is the German city of Fulda. Seems fine,
Oh no!
I guess.
Looks fair.
is there
The
a gap here
the
that we're
Fulda
gonna?
gap. No.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Put it back. Put it back. Put it back. Put it back.
Look, I wouldn't go to the Fulda Gap, but the Fulda Hot Topic though maybe.
There you go. Go to Fulda Pier 1
Oh,
imports.
you guys like bring me the horizon?
yeah, I mean, the thing, as we've all already identified here, is that the thing about Fulda is that it's very flat. It's the only place for miles that is. And so there was this general understanding throughout the Cold War that if things went bad, the fucking Third Guards tank army would advance west through Fulda and not stop until they reached Antwerp. And I can't stress enough the ubiquity of the belief among senior officers that this was the only place the US would ever fight a shooting war.
Yes.
You would only ever have to like. That's why you need the Stinger missile Bradley, is because there's all of a sudden there's going to be fucking Camoffs coming over the horizon in swarms, and like you need something that shoots them down.
Similarly, the Iron Triangle in Korea near Chorwon is 100% the same thing. It's like mountains. Oh, big one flat area. All right, cool. That's what they're going to attack. All right, it's just going to happen. So yeah, similarly.
We're only going to be fighting in good tank country against a numerically superior but technologically inferior adversary, and we're just going to have to like hold out and fight a delaying action until we get reinforcements or everyone gets nuked. Which
Right.
I've seen Threads. I know how it goes.
yeah. I have the next slide to show you how that ended.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
Shit.
I like
Capitalism
that,
happens.
that we've had to use this multiple times.
I'm gonna keep coming back to it.
Yes.
I know you are.
Okay.
He just recently turned 90.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
He's still alive. That's so wild to me. I wonder if we can get him on the pod.
We gotta ask.
Ask Mr. Gorbachev. Mr. Gorbachev, get on this pod.
Okay,
I
so
always wanted the Pope to be on the pod because Roz, you're a Catholic. We could go to the Vatican and request an audience.
I have loads of pull with the Pope, as you know.
And tell him that he's anti-Semitic if he doesn't come on the pod. This is an interfaith
Also
dialogue we're doing.
Islamophobic, yeah.
that's right. So the folder gap's not happening. What is happening is the next slide. The United States, also Britain, also France and Germany for some reason, get to take their Cold War doctrine on vacation. And we get the movie Jarhead out of it.
And its sequels, which are totally unrelated to the
Jarhead
first
2
movie.
and Jarhead 3. We get to invade Iraq for the last time.
Oh yeah. That'll never happen
Yep.
again.
And I mean,
Yeah, it's called a Forever War, so you only have to do it once. Duh.
Good point.
and we've solved war
Yeah.
forever.
well, I mean, I think we can say that the US did decisively win the first Gulf War.
Yes.
Yes.
I was going to say it sounds insane now, but this had the largest armored battles in history per number of like vehicles on each side, like more than the Battle of Kursk and shit.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you were going to be a tanker, you should have been a tanker in 1991.
Yeah, I actually had a guy that I worked for who had fought at the Battle of 73 Easting, and the reason why it's named that was because it's a big open desert in Kuwait, and so it's generally like the 73 grid line on the map. Like, you know, when we look at like a military map, and you know, like the map sheet is going to be listed as what's it called? You know, like broken down into grids or whatever. Like it's called that because it was just an open wasteland. Yeah, great place to fight a tank battle. Not really typical of where wars get fought, but it was a place where a war happened.
Yeah, it's a vacation. And I mean, you get to do American Blitzkrieg, right? You get to do these big sweeping armored movements. It's great. Senior officers love this shit, man. They get to talk about tempo. You know how much they love talking about tempo? A lot.
It's just fucking blasting fucking damn Yankees high enough, wearing a sweet unlicensed Bart Simpson t-shirt under your camouflage.
Try and
Just
stop
rocking.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just fucking rocking. And when you get done fighting, just cool off with a nice can of Tab. What a great time to be alive.
What a beautiful cap to a stupid decade, the 1980s, to invade Iraq. Next slide, please.
All had a nice time. Oh.
It's not all good, and it's mostly not good for the Bradley, right? Like the US loses like what 20 of these.
Yeah, and 17 of them to friendly fire.
I was gonna say that was my
Nice.
first guess. Was that every single one of them got fucking strafed by an A10 or some shit?
Yeah, it turns out if you make something that looks a lot like a BMP but larger and more noticeable, the Air Force kind of takes exception to that.
Yeah, and the thing was too is that the Iraqi army was entirely kitted out with Soviet equipment.
Hey,
so,
T-55s and stuff.
Yeah.
Although, funnily enough, I looked up the three that weren't killed by like the Air Force were all killed by BMPs rather than like any of these T-55s or T-62s. So
Really?
Fucking owned.
yeah,
Oh, I thought you were gonna say it was like they got killed because someone spilled a Gatorade on the front panel or something like that.
Spilled the
China
tab.
syndrome.
Yeah. All right, next slide, please. And we can just linger on this slide for a while because this is like the problems, right? And
Okay.
I have tentatively outlined the problems with infantry fighting vehicles. And the problems, as I have identified them, are called the Chechen Wars and the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan.
Podcast favorite.
Yeah, recurring guest, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan.
Although I did see someone tweet after Biden pulled ahead in Pennsylvania, I would and the Republicans were all like, we're going to roll up on Philly with a team. Someone said, I would rather roll up to Chechnya than roll up to Philly.
Well, you can see how rolling up on Chechnya is going, right? This is the first Chechen war. Read Arkady Babchenko's memoir about it, but like it's a BMP parking lot. And it turns out that once you've made one of those on like a tiny narrow dirt road, if your opponent doesn't mind fighting dirty, and it turns out nobody minds fighting dirty, you can just blow up the first one, blow up the last one, slaughter everyone in between, which is not ideal, particularly if you're the like post-Soviet Union Russian army that has no money for anything, including fuel.
I like how they got out of the Soviet. They're like, we're not the Soviet Union anymore. What do you guys want to do? Oh, fucking, you want to go do some war shit?
Yeah.
All right, why not?
Yeah, you want to go invade Chechnya?
It used to be ours. Let's go take it again.
Oh shit!
I mean, it technically still is. It's within their borders, but yeah, they were not. There's a whole history behind how the Caucasus became part of Russia. Tolstoy books about it. You know, some ethnic cleansing, some fucking just wholesale slaughter.
That's a Lines Led by Donkey podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
I sell diesel for cigarette.
We're talking about Iraq again.
That's why I have the yellow palm oil container.
Yeah.
This is my diesel powered vape.
Kind of want a palm oil like challenge coin or something. Anyway, it turns out.
Then you come to discover that the one guy who's just the shadiest landlord in Moscow was like, I was just trying to demolish the stupid building so I didn't have to repair it anymore. Why did this have to happen?
Yeah, Islam Karimov was simply trying to charge his Samsung Galaxy Tab. I mean, like this is a problem with like kind of all armored vehicles. Once you put a roof on them, you're back to square one. You can't really see out of them. You can't like maneuver very easily in crowded environments. It's suited for 73 Easting rather than like a city where people live. And unfortunately, the forever wars have mostly taken place in cities where people live, or towns where people live, or mountain passes where people live, which, again, not ideal for these.
Mm.
Yeah, not particularly. And when you also think about, they're not all that maneuverable. You can hear them coming a mile away because they're so fucking loud. Like, basically, they are incredibly conspicuous, and as such, like, they are very easy for people to target. And, you know, obviously in a city when you're surrounded by civilians, it's very easy to sort of blend in with the crowd until it's time to attack whatever. And like, these things are, I mean, the purpose you understand, but as you said earlier, Alice, these things are meant with the expectation that there are basically no civilians on the battlefield and we are fighting in Fulda, and it's Able Archer gone wrong in the worst way, you know, like, and that's not what wound up happening. No. I mean, Able Archer almost ended human life, but it didn't involve Bradley's fighting BMPs.
No. And instead what you end up is like with Bradley's fighting guys who don't own shoes. Which it turns out the guys who don't own shoes kind of have an advantage on that one.
They're really good.
Yeah, they're really good at what they got. Nothing going on this weekend.
Yeah,
right. And people like are so like, how do these guys in flip flops and pajamas beat us in Afghanistan and Iraq? Like, does nobody remember Vietnam? That was just a bunch of dudes in pajamas and flip flops with AK-47s, and they whipped the shit out of it.
Turns out, the worse your footwear situation is, the better you are at irregular warfare.
But also, it's just one of those things where it's like, you're going up against a bunch of people who literally, like, you've invaded their country and you've done next to no preparation for what you're going to face, and you're like, oh well, I mean, they know the terrain and they know everything about the place, and they, you know, absolutely understanding what does and does not play well with people in order to gain influence. But I did do the first section of Free Rosetta Stone Arabic, so I think we're actually going to win.
You know what says hearts and minds is a massive box with a rocket launcher and a cannon on it.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I can say? There was a situation where we were trying to fucking take off and there was a child hiding under the airplane, and I could say the boy is under the airplane in Arabic. So you know what? The war has actually been won. That is a niche joke for people who took that's one of the first sentences they make you learn in Rosetta Stone Arabic. Is like, the boy is on the airplane, the boy is under the airplane. Like, I don't know why.
Oh, it's like Adonde es el biblioteca.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and,
Because a lot of people, the first thing I do in Mexico is go look for the library.
Yeah.
Yes.
You only ever need to learn 3 phrases. Hello, where is the bathroom? And thank you.
Liam's counterinsurgency doctrine.
Yeah, are there any girls here?
Would you like to be Secretary of Defense?
I can do that. We will keep the B-52 flying until the fucking world meets its heat death.
I genuinely had an instructor one time who was a senior NCO who's just like, yeah, I don't really speak Pashto, but I know that I can speak M4 and point, and it means get the fuck out of my way. And it's just like,
All right, bud.
Hearts and minds.
All
Hearts and
right,
minds.
tough guy.
I wonder why they want to shoot us.
Yeah. I mean,
Me too.
the other fun thing about IFVs, as we saw on the first slide, you can just roll them over. It's not ideal.
Yeah, they're really flat and low to the ground, so as long as you get lift underneath one of them, they're kind of fucked.
Yeah. I mean, on the plus side, right? Like, clearly, US doctrine is very flexible and would never, fail to learn a lesson. And so, next slide, please. It's resisted the temptation to cover everything that moves in armor, making it a larger and slower target, and also decreasing its reliability and approachability. And
I don't know. I think the I appreciated the MRAPs way more than I appreciated the Humvees, because when I was in a Humvee, I was expected to do stuff even if I was in the back seat. And an MRAP, they don't give a shit. It's like if you're just in the back seat, they're like, you can't look out the window for IEDs. You can't, keep an eye out for, any side to side stuff that might come at you. So you just kind of sit there and either we'll show up there or we'll be dead, one way or the other.
you literally, it's the military version of being the kids in the back of the car. It's kind of insane.
Right. Like if you took, how in the olden days, I don't know if you got, how many of you experienced that, but the big station wagon, and then you just cram all the kids in the way back of the station wagon.
Oh, the
And you're
rear-facing seats, yeah.
Yeah, or the rear facing seats, or the seats that are pointed at each other.
Oh,
you
yeah,
could
in the
take
trunk,
you
yeah,
could
yeah.
take
Yeah.
the thing out, and then it just became. But there were no seatbelts, and it's just I don't know. If you cram enough kids in there, they just cushion their own blow if you run into something because you had 3 Tom Collins at lunch.
Yeah, well, I mean, kids are pretty durable already, so you do have an advantage there.
yeah.
When I had my Volvo, I got the rear-facing jump seats. And I've only ever used them a few times, but it was always great fun going 95 on the highway. And people are very aware of their own mortality. Highly recommend it.
I mean, okay, maybe the Bradley's an example of sort of bloat in defense procurement where you start out thinking, I want this small, agile sort of BMP-like thing, and what you end up with is a large box with a rocket launcher bolted to it. But that's fine.
Well, the problem that the Army runs into a lot of times is they don't want to say okay, let's make a thing that can do A, let's make a thing that can do B, and let's make a thing that can do C. They want to say, why don't we just make a thing that can do A, B, and C, maybe with a little bit of modulation, maybe a little changing, but you make a basic box, and then you attach shit to the box based on the mission that you need to do, which is kind of like the F-35. They're like, well, what if an airplane could do all the things that all the airplanes do?
What if a plane was a box?
Right. What if you took a box and you just put a whole bunch of electronics into it and it could do all the things? And it's that's great, but also the F-35 is in some ways a marvel of engineering, but also the A-10 does exactly what I need it to do, and it costs $14 million to build one, and they last for 30 years. And if you shoot it, it can fly home with half a wing. You can fly it by wire. They're the tanks of the air. And so why do I need this big fancy thing? And it's because this senator has an electronics manufacturing in his district, and this representative over here has a steelworking thing. So everybody needs to get together. The whole country is building this this F-35, and what that really says to me is we can't figure out procurement.
Yes.
And lo and behold, they couldn't.
It was the smartest fucking thing the military-industrial complex ever did. And I remember my dad pointing that out to me because there's a a BAE plant in York, and just like the idea that you get every congressperson's district involved to build one fucking plane. That way no one can vote no against it. And I was like, whatever, 13 years old. And I was just like trying to get some Taco Bell, and old man Anderson is out here being like, let's talk about military procurement. Now let's talk about
That's how you became that way. No, I mean,
Fucking General Smedley Butler is your dad here.
you know what's really funny though is that both the F-35 and the Bradley are BAE systems, so they're both British. They're both like you've got to
stay off our island.
You've got to stop letting us fucking like con you like this. Stop letting us
kick Alice off the podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the Liam and Rod show from now on.
like a lubricant line breaks and it just sprays the ground crew with hot Earl Grey tea.
I want to point out about the Bradley. If you look at the Bradley Wikipedia and you look at who uses the Bradley.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
you know,
Morons.
The real money on these is foreign sales, right? You want to go to the next slide? So, like, the real money is always in foreign sales. And there's two kinds of defense purchase, right? Defense purchase type 1, useful military procurement that's incidentally a bribe.
Hey, I see it.
Type 2, just flat out a bribe. And, like, you hope if you build a bad item that people will just do the second kind. They'll just buy it to like curry favor. Like fucking, like for instance, Egypt has a bunch of M1 Abrams, right? Without the depleted uranium in them. They bought those because both to curry favor and because they work. Whereas somewhere like fucking Georgia will just buy strikers or something, not because they like them or anything, but because they really, really need to be on side with America. Now, the foreign orders for the Bradley, there's only one, and it's Saudi Arabia.
Of course.
Saudi Arabia bought 400 of these, which is a laughably small number.
And Lebanon has some. It was used in the 2006 Israeli-Lebanese war.
Lebanon got like 30 of the like Bradley A2s.
It's interesting because the Pentagon Wars, they use the example as the Israelis getting the Bradleys, but they did not actually get any Bradleys.
No, because they didn't like them, which is very funny to me. I have here a screenshot from Al Arabiya, which is the Saudi state broadcaster in English, explaining about their new Bradleys, which they are definitely not using for war crimes.
That's the only thing you can use a Bradley for.
I like they describe it as the Bradley killing machine.
It's quiet part loud there.
I was about to say.
Right, and see, I thought that this was an article about something that could kill Bradleys, but the English language is fun.
No, this is for killing Houthis.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was going to say they determined that a 25 Mike and a tow missile was absolutely the best combination for destroying school buses. And there's like, you know what? We need 400 of them. We need to make sure that we can line the entire Rubah Hali with just these giant clown turrets. That's what I want to see in my national defense.
Look how fucking big they are.
This entire export order just says, man, fuck them kids.
When I told Chris that I was doing this episode, he was like, which one's the Bradley again? And I showed him the photo and he's like, okay, so it's not a tank then, but why does it look like that? And so, like, if someone with no interest in any sort of military stuff can come to that conclusion, I don't know how the entire fucking Pentagon process for this was like, yeah, no, fuck it, make it.
Make a tank, but make it so it instead of having a main gun, it has a comical, Gallagher the comic prop of a gun that just says bang when you shoot it.
Make it really, really tall.
Make it look like a tank, but with none of the upsides of a tank. We don't want any kind of armor. We don't want good firing. We don't want anything like that. And the thing is that the Bradley fighting vehicle as a troop transport, like if you just said, here it is, it's a troop transport, you can cram like 10 guys in there, and it's got a medium kind of cannon on top, then it's great. It would do exactly what it needs to do. But there's like, They're expecting too much out of this thing, and it's the jack of all trades, master of none, but also it's a jack of like 3 trades, and we don't do those things anymore.
Well, good news.
Tank, but make it fashion. Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing. Like people say, well, it's not technically a tank. Like, how is this not a tank? What is making it? Because like it's almost a tank. They certainly started as a personnel carrier.
I
And
mean,
turned
genuinely,
it into a
if you threw a main gun on there instead of the 25mm cannon, like it would fit the profile of any tank. I mean, I don't know how you would fit the loading mechanism and all that shit into that, considering how crammed for space it already is. But
Bigger turret.
Yeah. Bigger turret. Have an autoloader on the outside of the tank for some reason.
Well, if you completely took out the troop transport part of it, and wherever like the 3 dudes that can fit in here now are, you just put an autoloader in there, and then bang, the Bradley is now a tank. Like if
I want a self-propelled 155mm howitzer Bradley. That's just absolutely like the most incomprehensibly unusable thing you possibly can get. But just you can do it. Why not? You know what? You threw shit on this thing already. You threw a fucking Stinger missile launcher on one of them. You know what? Put
big gun on top, little gun on bottom. Hell yeah, let's do it.
We'll get there.
Some gun ports, put some everything, man. We got it.
Just stick the Tesla autopilot in there so you don't need to carry any crew at all. Then just set it off from the at the entrance to the base and say, all right, go kill some people and come back later. And then it'll go, I don't know, run into a semi-truck.
The lane guidance.
You put the fucking AI from that dog robot, the Boston Dynamics one, into a Bradley.
Just throws itself into a ditch. Instructions unclear. Ditched self.
So, next slide, please. We mentioned this way up top, but like, still using the M113.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it works. It's a box with tracks on it. It works quite well. It's fast.
It genuinely looks like he's got a kit box, like a tough box on top, and a bunch of boxes of MREs. And I'm just like, hell yeah, man. Oh yeah,
just thriving, having the best time of his life.
No cell phones, just vibes.
Yeah, that looks like it was shot at the National Training Center too. So
that's the box.
Fun times all around.
Yeah, this is up to an M113A4. And they're still using them for medical evacuation vehicles, a couple of other things. I think command posts.
Yep. Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, you will see these as medevac vehicles, and you'll also see them as there'll be at least one in a mechanized infantry company, which typically, or there may even be 2. I can't remember if the XO of a company has his own Bradley or has a 113, but definitely the first sergeant has a 113. And yeah, they're light, they're nimble, they're maneuverable, not very well armored, but I mean, for what they're used for, they serve a purpose. Yeah.
We've got exciting news though. You know how we just identified all of those relatively good things? As of September 2020, the Army is now phasing out the last of these M113s to be replaced by the Armored Multi-Purpose Vehicle.
Oh boy.
Oh, please tell me it's an MRAP, but just with treads.
I have 2 punchlines about the Armored Multi-Purpose Vehicle tender. Punchline 1, BAE Systems entered and won with the Bradley, but, next slide please, without a turret.
What the fuck is this?
Taking us back to square one of the whole fucking thing.
This appears to be some kind of barge.
Turretless Bradley.
Did Ross decide this?
It's got all the fucking boxiness of the Bradley, but with like none of the turret. It's great.
They made my Volvo a fighting vehicle.
So I'm going to point out I think this is reactive armor on the outside, which is way better than like what they had. So I can see, I'm looking at another picture. I see RPG cages on it, which are just, you put cages on the outside and RPG hits it. They're a good, 6 inches away. So the RPG will blow up the cage, but it doesn't impact the vehicle itself. So it's not going to do concussion. It's not going to blow a hole in it. But also this reactive armor, if you shoot something at it, the reactive armor blows up at it so that it, is basically meeting force to force. Now, also on these pictures I see, as Nate said earlier, the joystick machine gun, but that's it. There's no cool, here's something that can, punch a hole in something. It's basically just like a 240 Bravo, which is a 7.62 millimeter machine gun.
There was a vehicle. I went to the Armor Museum at Fort Knox. I was there for a thing when I was still a cadet, and when we had some free time at Fort Knox, Kentucky, we went to the Armor Museum, and they have one of the 2 prototypes of a vehicle called a T-28 Super Heavy Tank which was designed in World War II, but then they stopped it because the war ended. And it is extremely long, extremely wide. It's double tracked, so it has 4 treads. And I'm telling you, that's the first thing that came to mind when I saw this. I was just like, Jesus, they finally made that fucking bitchin' tank that I saw, but this took the main gun out.
Yeah,
And actually,
it's just a fucking M113, but less maneuverable, which
so
is
the
what
Bradley
you want.
is like a tank without a main gun, and this is basically a tank without a fucking turret or a cupola.
Yes.
It's just
But notably, not the same as an armored personnel carrier, which is what we started with. Because
yeah.
that was punchline 1 of 2. Punchline 2 is gonna get you though. You ready for punchline 2? Next slide, please. They made it bigger and they put a turret on it.
Oh, of course.
Oh my!
This looks like an armored snail.
I was about to say, it seems to
They're
be
gonna replace all of the M113s. They've already started doing that with these.
But what?
This is so fucking depressing.
I'm just gonna say that this is better than the Bradley. This is what they should have designed first. Like if they had in 1968 came up with this with a machine gun turret on top, and then we're like, here it is, it's good, it can do all those things. Of course, they wanted to do a bunch of dipshitty stuff with it, like put a 25 millimeter on it. But I mean, look, I've seen 113s. I've never had to drive in one of them, but if I had to be crammed in the back of something, I'd rather it be the AMPV.
This looks like the Abrams chassis, though.
quite literally. I have,
It's a stretched Bradley. It has they put an extra axle on there.
as I have drawn on the screen here, it quite literally looks like the Homer.
That's so incredible! Oh my god! So it looks like they just have a 50 cal on it, and that's it.
And that's going to be your ambulance. That's going to be your casualty
so
evacuation.
Basically, what they determined
vehicle.
is that too many first sergeants are retiring at like age 39 and have all of these fucking pension benefits. So they're like, we need a vehicle that will ensure that first sergeants get killed the most in battle. So like, give us the biggest fucking profile possible and replace the 113 with that.
Make it big with absolutely no kind of offensive capabilities whatsoever.
Yeah, give me the Rhino from Warhammer.
Put a billboard on the side which says in bright letters in 50 languages, "This is a legitimate military target."
Come on, shoot at us.
I'm trying to think if I'm a Russian in like a T-14 tank and I just see that monstrosity come over the hill. And just like, how does one react to that? Because like, it's literally no danger to you. There's nothing that this can do to a modern tank. So it's like punching a baby, but it's your enemy. So it's like, well, I have to punch that baby because it's my enemy. But like this thing, and then just a bunch of dudes come out and trip over their own feet and fall down, and then you're like, okay, now we can light it the fuck up.
I'm just wondering, because it genuinely looks to me like they've taken the Abrams and they've repurposed it, but they've added a bunch of Rube Goldberg shit in this schematic. And I can't really. I mean, I'm just laughing. I'm like, what is the point here? Like, if
you
it's
know
meant
what
to
it
be
reminds me of? It reminds me of those memes where like the guy's brain is growing out of his head into the form of a chessboard.
Well, it's just like if it's supposed to be a C2 vehicle, like okay, but it's huge. If it's meant to be a medevac vehicle, like is this meant to medevac an entire battalion's worth of casualties? I mean, what the fuck? Like, if it's meant to be, I don't know, some kind of all-purpose vehicle, like, it's just, why can't we make smaller all-purpose? Like, could you just take the ASV and, like, make it better? Like, make it less of a coffin? You know, but it looks like, because I think it was, ASV is like it's like an American variant sort of modeled off of the BRDM. And, like, can we just have smaller vehicles, like maneuverable vehicles? Like, why does it have to be a tank?
Because you know why? Because fucking soldiers are all whiny now. Oh, I want air conditioning. I need heating. I need to be comfortable inside of my war. I need a place to fucking put down my Burger King that I got down at the PX at the war zone. So yeah, you know what? And also soldiers are all fat now. So we need this. We need this now. It still only holds 9 people.
Nate, you joked about having a howitzer on this. They don't have that yet, but this does come in mortar carrier.
Oh, fucking bitchin'. Well, there's a Striker. There's a Striker variant that has a 120 millimeter main gun on it, which is
Striker. General Dynamics entered the AMPV tender with a tracked Striker, and they lost to turretless Bradley. So
I I have a weird fondness for Strikers, but there's a really fun, hilarious detail about them, which is that the whole point of the Striker was that they were supposed to be air mobile, like transportable on C-130s. And then they learned very quickly that inexperienced in Afghanistan and Iraq, that because they have flat bottoms, they're just getting fucking obliterated by IEDs. So they had to like make a V-hulled version with improved armor on the bottom, which now cannot be carried by a C-130. Like, it's just...
The Army loves to just it's Sideshow Bob constantly stepping on rakes.
BAE Systems call this the future of battle and say that it will change the way the US Army fights.
Boy, mate, it got a future battle here.
Yeah, it's the future of battle, isn't it? Its versatile family of vehicles offers significant improvements in mobility, force protection, and soldier survivability.
Corey, you could jam all your mates in there. Yeah, just get them off to the pub.
You know, it really will change warfare is giving them the same vehicle but larger.
I'm the British guy. I'm the British soldier who spent 2 years in Northern Ireland.
I was going to say, that's the thing, Francis. Like,
Do you mean the north of Ireland?
The north of Ireland.
Sometimes you sound like you're trying to be Cockney, and sometimes you sound like you're trying to be the Peaky Blinders guys with like horrible Brum accent. So I don't know where. I don't even attempt that accent unless I'm interpreting a slight different version of Ozzy Osbourne. So. Sharon, they gave me a fucked up Bradley, Sharon. I can't even get on the bus, Sharon.
Well, that's my slideshow. That's my presentation. That's what I had on the M2 Bradley. And as George Santayana once said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to make it larger and put a turret on it.
Yes.
I just want to be the guy who does the 3D renderings of the sweet ass logos of Program Executive Office ground combat systems.
I bet they have really nice challenge coins.
Yeah, that looks like something that would genuinely be like, oh, we gave 3D Studio to like the bath party and they came up with this. It's amazing. That's what I want to know. The person who does that probably makes more than someone who works for like a fucking VX or a VR studio. So you know what I mean? Like, do it.
Do we have any closing thoughts about the M2 Bradley?
I think that the movie Pentagon Wars is really good, but it doesn't. It kind of does some injustice to it because when I rewatched it, there were scenes where they're like, "Oh, they took the gas out of it and they put water in it and they put inert rounds inside of it." It's like, well, yeah, if you're doing armor penetration tests, you do that, and then you're just like, "Oh, hey, look, it punched holes here in the gas tank. It hit this ammo box over here." Like, you don't want to constantly be blowing shit up.
Yeah, it doesn't have to blow up every time.
Yeah, there's a bit in there where they're like, "Oh," and they put a turret on it. And like, the BMP has a turret. The first one of the prototypes has a turret. It's not that it has a turret; it's that you made the turret out of a fucking shipping container.
Yeah, Pentagon Wars is a good movie, but you do kind of have to take it as like, this is not historically accurate.
It's not a documentary. It's satire about government procurement.
To me, like when I look at this AMPV, it just looks like what would be the engine on the train from Snowpiercer. Like I don't understand why they had to go that much bigger and that much like, unless the only thing I can possibly think of is that the Army, the Department of Defense is constantly being pressured by Congress to tender more orders for tanks because they make a lot of money in the districts they're built in. And so the thought had crossed my mind that like we cannot force more Abrams on the world. So maybe we just need to build a different kind of Abrams and say it's the replacement for the thing that Abrams replaced. And, that's why kids don't have erasers on their pencils in school, because we need more fucking Abrams, 78-ton Abrams that just break bridges everywhere.
It rules so hard that you have so many Abrams tanks in storage. Like, there are just parking lots full of them, and you're trying to sell them to anybody who will listen. You tried to sell them to Brazil last year, which...
Imagine we succeed?
We sold a lot to Iraq. Which are just going to turn into pillboxes.
Yeah, Iraq got some. Egypt got a bunch. Fuck, who else?
Why in the you're like, damn, the Program Executive Office, like, are you really tendering another sale? I was like, yeah, man. I mean, they were completely sold on the Abrams tank's ability to defend the Gilbert Islands. Like, they're actually sinking faster now because of the one tank you've placed on the atoll. But hey, you know what?
Australia bought the M1.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
Those EBUs are tough bastards, man.
One thing that's going to give us a tactical advantage in future wars is if every single other country also uses the same weapon systems we do.
The Kuwaiti army fields 218 M1A2s. which is enough for one guy to drive around in them each, like whipping people with belts.
Literally every single officer in the Kuwaiti army has his own M1 Abrams. It's crazy.
You know, and also the Bradley. I don't know if the Bradley's been used for this, but one thing that I do like for things like this and the Stryker, you know, these things that are not necessarily tanks, but they're also not really just like a armor personnel carrier, is like after like the Millennium Challenge 2002, where the United States Navy got torn into by like fake, you know,
Blokes who fish, to quote Milo.
right. What if we were fighting Iran? Wouldn't it be funny how much we beat them and then like they smoke us because they're like, no, we're just going to use speedboats with bombs on it and just blow shit up. So like now, instead of like on aircraft carriers and stuff, because an aircraft carrier always goes with what like destroyers and shit like that. It has an escort, but like they have no defense against the speedboat. There's like nothing. If a speedboat is coming at an aircraft carrier, it's like I literally can't do anything. So what they would do is they would just like park Marine Strykers and stuff up on the flight deck and just be like, if something comes at you, shoot it with a 30mm cannon.
Fuck yeah, okay, it's a close-in weapon system now.
There you go.
Oh my
We have
God.
solved the problem.
Out of curiosity, I just wanted to say this, Alex, because I thought this would be a funny thing for me to end on, at least, is that I told you I looked up the super heavy tank, and I just happened to be looking through the Wikipedia article for it, and there's a subsection called surviving vehicle. And this is, just please bear with me, because this is such a, number one, this is such a military guy or military civilian contractor guy who's editing Wikipedia sort of way of phrasing a thing. But B, also, it's just, the story is an absolute roller coaster. So in 1974, the last prototype was discovered abandoned in a field at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Camouflaged in the middle of some bushes, it is unknown where it spent the intervening 27 years. It is the sole remaining example of these tanks and was exhibited at the Patton Museum of Cavalry and Armor in Kentucky. In 2011, it was shipped to its new home at Fort Benning, Georgia. It was placed in the new Patton Park, which is a plot of 30 acres where all the tanks being stored at Fort Benning are now displayed. Unfortunately, the vehicle was damaged in January 2017 during transit to another facility for external refurbishment when it broke loose from the M1070 hat carrying it. The transporter failed to negotiate a downhill slope and subsequent turn at safe speed, causing the securing chains to break and allowing the T-28 to slide off the trailer. Despite then rolling into a ditch, only minor reparable damage was sustained to two bogies. The outer track units had to be removed. On 10-30/2020, the outer track units were reconnected at Fort Benning National Army and Cavalry Museum, as it being moved indoors for preservation. So you know what? This will also be the fate of the Bradley at some point.
The last surviving Bradley gently rolling off of a trailer,
Breaking off a head.
into a ditch to end up like the first slide.
Exactly. And we're just going to say to ourselves, thus as it ever will be, it has returned to its natural home, upside down in a ditch.
Just leave it there, like have that the museum exhibit.
From the earth you came, and to the earth you shall return. Ashes to ashes and rust to rust.
That's right.
Yes.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for joining me
Thank
on
you.
this adventure into tanks that are not tanks.
Yes.
Thank you very much for tolerating my digressions into the T-28 as well as much else.
And thank you, the listener, for subscribing to either What a Hell of a Way to Die or Well, There's Your Problem to get this, or both. You should do both.
You
do
could
both.
do both, yeah.
Yeah, me and Francis talk about stuff like this all the time. No cool slideshows, but the spirit remains the same.
That's right.
Yeah, if you really want to hear more about two dudes making fun of dumb shit the Army does, boy, have I got a podcast for you.
Oh, yeah.